That's better. No, that's better. It's not the best, but I think we'll jump right into it.
Hello and good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for being able to join us for this particular webinar. I hope you are able to hear me clearly from wherever you are tuning in from. It's a very cold morning here in Nairobi, lots of traffic, it's a bit rainy as well. But thank you for creating time to be able to join us for this particular webinar. Today on this webinar, we'll be covering the topic of organizational analysis, a critical success factor. Knowing where the organization wants to be in the mid and long term, is the business then structured or attuned to deliver or achieve these goals or objectives? This is a critical success factor that also evaluates and helps formulate actions around the internal capacity of the organization. The internal mechanics should allow it to run efficiently, such as organization design, escalation, matrix, communication policy, levels and limits of authority, and interdepartmental service level agreements, among others, are put under scrutiny. The operating model is a critical case in point. To help us tackle this particular topic of organizational analysis is my friend, Julian Rowa. Julian has 20 plus years of experience with success leading diverse innovation and high growth multinational organization in banking and non-profit organization. He excels in brand placement, profit growth, financial administration, and driving operational excellence. Julian holds an MBA from Oxford Brookes University in England, and also a DBA from the University of Liverpool in England as well. Currently, he's the CEO of Shajuls Management Consulting Limited. So, karibu sana, Julian. I hope you're ready to help us tackle this very important and critical topic. So, over to you, Julian. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Purity. Can you hear me, or do I have to put on a mic?
No. We can hear you.
Oh, it's good if you can hear me. Okay, I want to say good morning to everybody. It's a very cold morning in Nairobi.
Yes.
And that being the case, then I'm challenged to make sure that what we want to share today is of value to every delegate. And hopefully at the end of this session, there will be some takeaways. By way of introduction, and as Purity has said, my name is Julian Rowa, currently the CEO of Shajuls Business and Management Consulting. I've just completed my doctoral program in business with the University of Liverpool. Hopefully I can graduate on the
Hi, Julian.
Hello?
You're breaking a lot from your end. I'm not so sure why.
Can I put on the mic, maybe?
All right, let's try that.
Oh, can you hear me well now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try and keep it that way.
All right.
So I'd like us to jump into the topic of the day, which is organizational analysis and how it drives the overall performance of an organization. Many times when I engage organizations on subject management, you see a big fixation with strategy, but even in strategy development, there's very little focus that is ever given to analyzing the organization so that you can understand what is well attuned to the aspiration of that organization. And that is what we'll be trying to unpack today and see if we can broaden our understanding in this subject. I want to start off by way of introduction. What is an organization? An organization is an open system that interacts with itself and the external environment. So think about the design, think about the function, think about the departments, all coming together to tackle an issue in the external environment. That is what an organization is. But what is organizational review? Here we are talking about checking the components of the organization and how they are geared to serve performance. That's what we mean when we say we are analyzing an organization. It is very important to do that because organization performance is dependent on its strength. It is dependent on the circumstances it finds itself and the variables, situational variables. So just to clarify, I'm sure all of you have come across this acronym SWOT. So when you're thinking about the strength and weaknesses, that's what I mean by depending on strength. When you're looking at threats and opportunities, those are the situational variables or circumstances that organization finds itself. Now think about a car and what a car is designed to do. And for this, I'm going to borrow from Dart in his work of 1994, where he gave 3 stages in the development and the performance of a car. The first being its birth, the conception of it, somebody sits down and thinks, what are the mechanics around this, how the wheels going to be put together, how we're going to put it in, etc., how will the body look like. That becomes the birth of the car. conceptualization. Then you buy the car and you push it to the road. That's the yield stage, where the systems of the car begin to formalize and you begin to have a relationship with your car. After a couple of years, a car goes through midlife, what in human terms we call midlife crisis. And here, complexities emerge. There's a bit of loss of flexibility. It's no longer as creative as it is. And then the car reaches maturity, where now there's danger of stagnation, and then there's open competition and the risk of calamity. So using that analogy, take that and put it within the organizational context to have a better understanding of why it is critical to understand organization and analyze it to deliver to your aspirations.
Hi, Julian.
Yes.
Just a minute. I think we have a problem with your audio.
Yeah. Hello, Purity.
Hi.
I'll put on the mic now. Is that better?
I hope it will be better, like it will not be breaking. You're breaking a lot.
Okay, fine. I have a feeling this should be good.
All right. Please continue. Sorry for that.
No, not a problem, and thanks for letting me know. But please do shout if you can't hear me. So I've given you a pictorial representation of a car. And many times our organizations take this form and shape without us knowing. As you can see, the wheels are not properly aligned or attuned. The engine seems to be having a problem. I'm not sure the lights work. Then the question becomes, will this car take you to your destination? I'd like to borrow again from Keynote change model. What do we need to do to move organizations from one point to another? We are now faced with a very, very delicate challenge, which is the COVID-19. And with the COVID-19, we have to rethink how we run or drive our organizations. Kurt Lewin spoke about the need to unfreeze the operations of the organization. And that simply means take a step back and think, is this organization taking me where I want to go? Once we unfreeze, we are doing an analysis to understand whether we are properly structured. Then you develop what you may call a change process, which basically articulates where you want your organization to go next. Once that is clear, you do the implementation, and then you freeze. When you're freezing, you're declaring that that is the new way of doing business here. It's a very powerful model when you're trying to manage change. It's a very powerful model when you're trying to understand the organization and where you want it to go. And it's a very powerful model to attune you to the changing circumstances in the external environment. I want to make two statements that are very critical in the space of running organizations effectively. And it says, only organizations with a creative climate promoting use of more flexible work designs will do well to handle chaos, will do well to handle change, and will do well to meet the ever-changing customer expectations. Only organizations with a creative climate. 2, good organization structures do not by itself of themselves produce good performance. Many times we think that by having a good organizational structure, good performance will follow. Not necessarily. Peter Drucker says, poor organization structures make good performance impossible. So having it does not assure you success. Not having it assures you failure. As you're processing the discussion today, think about the key objectives of organizations. And here we will borrow from the balanced scorecard. What are your financial goals? And how is the organization to achieve that? What are your customer goals? Acquisition, retention, expansion. What are they? What are your internal development goals? Systems, processes, people. What are your innovative goals that facilitate learning and development within the organization? So when you're thinking about an organization and you're thinking about analyzing it, it is guided by those four principles: finance, customer, internal processes and systems, and the need for innovation and growing people. Why do we need organizational analysis? Organizational analysis is important because it tells us where we are relative to where we want to go. I've just been given another very good mic. If you'll just give me a second to put it up. Just a second, you can help me. Just give me a second. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Oh, this is a little tough. So I've just said an organizational analysis is important because it sets you to know where you are relative to where you want to go. It also helps you align. It also helps you align to long-term goals and objectives. It helps you understand your internal capacities and capabilities. And most important, an organization that is properly modeled and the architecture is centric to your business aspiration can help you understand whether the workflows that you have put in place is commensurate with what you're trying to achieve for your organization. There are 4 components for organizational analysis. 1, what are your projections? What is your vision as an organization? What is your desired end state? Now, when you're analyzing on your organization, you're analyzing it on the basis of your projection. Number 2, what are these products that you intend to push? And what is their efficacy in the market? What problem are they going to solve so that they can generate revenue for you? This is another very critical component of organizational analysis. The 4th component is the process. The 3rd component is the process. What processes are you going to use? What vehicle are you going to use? What channels of distribution are you going to use so that the product can reach their intended destiny? This is also another critical aspect of analysis for your organization. And finally, people make the whole difference. How good is your human resource? How talented are they? How proficient are they? How knowledgeable are they about the product, the processes, and the projections that you've made? I call them the 4 Ps. When you're looking at organization and you want to analyze organization, there are again 3 aspects of it that are very, very critical for your success. Every time you're looking at reorganizing, you must think of your organization from a strategic perspective. That's number 1. And strategy simply means taking a long-term view. And then you have also to consider the tactical aspects of it. How tactically attuned are we? By tactical, I mean you will encounter turbulence along the way. How are you set to manage? And then finally, there's the transactional, which is the day-to-day operation, the day-to-day tasks. How are they being undertaken so that the objectives can be met and so that the vision can be accomplished?
So as you think about analyzing an organization, even before you think the bigger issues around strategy, those are the two principles that I would suggest that as leaders of organizations, you critically think through. Some years back, McKinsey developed what they call the 7 S's. And they argued that those are the most important aspects of organizational analysis for organizations to grow or develop. And one of those, they said, was strategy. How are you strategized, structure? How are you put together, systems? What are the processes you've put in place? Then they have other 4 very soft aspects of it, like shared values, which I call guiding principles, the style of leadership, the human resource, which is staff, and the skills. And this is what they had out there. What I don't know is how holistic this is, especially today. And we're even more challenged with events such as the pandemic, which is COVID. We then must ask whether this is sufficient to help give us a turnaround, or whether we need to deepen our thinking around organizational analysis. I now want to share with you certain aspects that whenever you're analyzing your organization, which many people misconstrue to mean looking at the internal dynamics, basically the mechanical aspect of how the organization is wired, I'm arguing that there are bigger things that you should be thinking about and that you should be evaluating to see whether indeed the organization is structured well to do what it was designed to do. So there are those that I call core, which you cannot run away from, and which you must evaluate on an ongoing basis. 1, how is the strategic plan designed to work? Every organization will tell you that they have a strategic plan. But how was it developed relative to the competencies and the capacity of the organization? Now, when you think about a strategic plan, there are three things that must come to mind. You are envisioning your people, you are enabling your people, and you are energizing your people. When you're thinking about strategic plan, you're looking at a model that looks at where you want to go, where you are now, so that you can see what the distance is, and from the distance, the next steps that you need to take. If your strategic plan does not speak language, as you're analyzing your organization, then you have a fundamental problem. Your strategic plan must also talk to what needs to be done. And not only what needs to be done, but also how. When you're doing this analysis, ask yourself the question, are we clear on the vision? And are we online to achieving that vision? Are we clear on our strategic objectives or goals? Are we clear on the activities that will deliver on those strategic objectives? And what are the tasks, the little tasks that we have to do so that those objectives or those activities are delivered? What are the indicators that we have succeeded? What are the indicators that we have succeeded? And how will we monitor and evaluate? So when you're doing your organizational analysis, you must also take your strategic plan and compare the correlation or the connection. You can tick the boxes and then give a rating that in the strategic plan, we are 1 out of 10 attuned, meaning we have to do some work to achieve the other 9. An analysis will help you establish where the gaps are. The next item that you must think about as an organization, you're either pushing a product or pushing a service. The product or service is designed to solve a certain problem. When you're analyzing organization relative to the products that you're pushing out to the market, you must ask or check the following. Does the product or service proposition make commercial sense? And will it have the uptake sense, or will it make uptake sense? Will it generate sales? That's what it means. When I'm putting out a product in the market, what is the approval framework? Most of us depend on our gut, and there's nothing wrong with depending on gut. But trying to run some numbers, trying to do a proof of concept, trying to do some background analysis with a structured way of approving that this product is feasible or viable is a critical component to success. So when you're analyzing your organization relative to your product, you must ask yourself that question. What does the business case say? What is the cost-benefit analysis for this product or for this service? What are the projections? When will we break even? When do we expect payback or the benefits? These are questions that must come to tandem with organizational analysis and product design. We must think about direct and indirect costs when you're looking at products so that we can understand the margins. Are we making profits? Are we making losses? There's never a problem making losses, especially when it is intended that we will make losses for a period of time as we try to establish catchment for our products. And finally, when you're thinking about new products and the approval process, you must ask yourself the question, do we have a formidable way of distributing this product to the market? We are still talking about analyzing your organization, but we are saying it cannot be done in a vacuum. It must be done relative to your product development, and your product approval process. How do you develop the business? Now, this is the other word that I think, in my experience in the corporate world, has really been misused or abused. Business development. It is a bit woolly and not many people really understand it. Yes, this is what makes a difference, the difference between success and failure for your organization. So the business development model is something you must scrutinize and evaluate very deeply. And I've given you a few indicators. One, do you have a process of relationship building and relationship management with your stakeholders? Do you have a retention strategy for that business that you already have? How are your sales driven? Are they target driven? Because that should be the way, target driven. When you look at your client's pocket, he has a wallet. What is your share in that wallet? That is part of business development. How profitable are you? So all the activities that you're doing, what profitability does it bring to you, and how does it grow your balance sheet? These are things you must take against when you're analyzing your organization. Where are the prospects? What are the volumes of those prospects? From prospecting, you're building a pipeline because you have done the first entry to interest somebody with the goods or the services that you're selling. Then you must also ask yourself, what pipeline am I building to make the closure of this sale possible? When building your business or developing your business, you must ask yourself how you're monitoring it and how you're evaluating it. I've just shared a few examples. Referrals is a concept for business building, sales campaign, a day set aside to push a certain product, which is what I'm calling blitz, and things like rewards such as loyalty points. I mean, what incentivization have you put in place to push the sales of your product? When you are analyzing your organization, you must also think about the operational efficiency. A promise has been made by the salesperson. To deliver that promise becomes an operational aspect. And so as an organization, you must ask, How good are we at doing this in a scale of, say, 1 out of 10? Now, I see a lot of organizations making a lot of excuses when things go wrong. We couldn't do this because one of our personnel was not present this morning. Within the operational space, if that is what happens in your organization, then you have a fundamental problem. One of my former directors of operations by the name Hugh Hawkins described operations as the art of making the impossible possible. How is your organization attuned to do that? The only way you will appreciate operations is when you think about an orchestra, a band, and I'll take example of TP OK Jazz, which I had the pleasure to attend their concert when I was relatively young, about 20 years ago. If Franco, the lead vocalist of the band, was to sing, and he was a very good singer, if he was to sing without the instrumentalists, such as the Car, Gegar, and the rest, if they didn't do their thing, just strumming the guitar, blowing their saxophones, there would be no music. There would be no harmony, and there would be no joy. Operations, if you take away nothing from this particular element, is operations is your orchestra. I also want to add that we all seek to push for sales excellence. Everybody's asking, we want sales, we want sales, we want sales, but how do we make sales happen? Operational excellence leads to service excellence. If you have effective operational procedures, then you have unique and wonderful service ethos, which inevitably, because of good service, leads to excellent sales. So I'm just emphasizing that so that we can understand when we are analyzing our organization, the input we must put in operations. Operations has two aspects, or it satisfies two aspects. It connects with your clients functionally. Functionally to mean you walk into an ATM and it is not down, it is functioning. Or two, something went wrong and somebody took responsibility to manage you. That is the emotional aspect. So operations delivers both functional connectivity and emotional connectivity. So when you're thinking about operation, ask yourself, what is the end-to-end process? And are they clearly designed to deliver those products whose stake for me is very, very high? When you're thinking about your operations model, these end-to-end processes, how do you ensure that there is compliance? How is it enforced? And then finally, what are the risks that are resident within my operational space, and how can I control them? That is something that you must analyze as an organization to gain an appreciation of building an engine that can deliver or help you take on all those boxes. Digitization, what others call information technology or information systems. And normally we have an argument with my peers around whether when you're looking at the digitization platform, whether it's a strategic issue or whether it's just an enabler to a strategic question. The jury is still out. We are not sure which is which of the two. But we must ask, is our platform, digitized platform, enabling operational efficiency? That is something we must ask of ourselves. Have we critically appraised our information technology and our informational systems to see whether they are aligned to our strategy and our business aspirations? I have seen a lot of people procure very, very colorful, very, very big systems without correlating or connecting the two. IT must drive business development. IT must deliver strategy. So when you think about your IT in your organization, you must ask whether it gives room for future innovation and whether it allows you to scale. You must also ask the question, whether it reduces your risk profile. You must also ask the question whether it is intelligent enough, for example, to mine data for you that then you can use to either upsell or cross-sell. You must also ask whether that particular platform gives you information systems that can help you make decisions of management and also manage your customer base. You must also ask the question, does the digitized platform give you an audit trail so that you can see what happened yesterday and how it happened? And that way you are able to monitor suspicious transactions. Does your digitized platform allow you to separate duties among people? We know the risks inherent in one person doing the entire process. Does it give room for levels and limits of authority? And does it provide for exception reports, which then you can look at and say, we have a problem here? For me, when I'm analyzing an organization from the IT perspective, that is what I want to see. Strategic human resource management, people. Ultimately, you'll deliver results through people. You may have the best IT platform, but if you don't have good people, it is an exercise in futility. When I think about people, what I want to tick when I'm analyzing my organization is whether they're responsive to innovation and change. And this is one place I have a big fight with my HR colleagues, especially in my corporate world. Because whenever I wanted to bring in a new resource person, I was not just trying to solve the problem that I'm facing, but I was looking at the possibilities that can come with that recruitment. And especially when I'm very clear of where I want to be, how I want to evolve as an organization in 5 years, it became critical for that resource person to be able to travel that journey with me. When you're doing your analysis around people, do you identify talent and do you develop it? Do you train them to deliver on your aspirations? Are they multi-skilled? Are they proficient? What are their attributes? For example, what kind of attitude do they have? I remember in my previous life, I met a very interesting director who was a leader in my function that told me that you hire for attitude. Everything else you can actually develop in-house. Then when I'm thinking about strategic human resource management, are they motivated? When you're analyzing your organization and you're doing a temperature check for your people, would you say they are motivated? Financial management. Hii ndio msema kweli. Ultimately, everything that you do ends up in this basket. When you're analyzing your organization, you must ask yourself all the time what your assets and liabilities are and how they compare. You must ask yourself how much cash you have, how that cash is flowing. You must ask yourself whether you're in the space of profitability or loss. What I have learned with COVID is that many organizations or business enterprises do not have reserves, do not have contingencies, or even a benevolent fund where that can allow for organizational continuity. If you're analyzing your organization properly, you'll be able to spot that and say, we have a problem. So it's very painful to see that after only 2 months of challenges within the space of COVID, a lot of organizations are now scaling down. Financial analysis will also tell you about your projections, and you can use that to extrapolate and say, given this run rate in the next 1 year, I should be able to hit my targets. Do you have a barometer that does that for you? Are you returning on investment? Are you breaking even? Are you paying back? And are you managing for value? So when you are analyzing your organization in the context of financial management, those are things that you must think about. Now, I'll run very quickly on the rest of the slides. Risk management is another critical component in analyzing your organization. What could go wrong? identify that which could go wrong, assess that which could go wrong, give it a weighting in terms of the potential loss if this was to happen is this. Then develop a mitigating aspect or a control mechanism around it. Ensure compliance. Monitor that actually we are complying. Develop reports and a dashboard that can give you the quality or the health of your risks. When I'm analyzing my organizations, I want to be clear that I have the capacity to do that. And then again, I can weight it, scale it, measure it, and say, under risk, I'm only 2 out of 10 effective. When you're thinking about risks, again, I'd ask them to add, when you're thinking about risk and you're thinking about mitigation, you must think, do we have primary controls, which are the very primary area of fencing, you're protecting your operations? Do we have secondary controls? And do we have tertiary controls? You can actually do a bit of research on what all of this means. And then do we have measures that prevent? Do we have measures that detect? And do we have measures that preempt? Until I am satisfied that I can tick all the boxes in my organization, then from a risk management perspective, I am in danger. The rest of the slides is what I call auxiliary. The other things that you need to think about as you are analyzing your organization, they are key, they support the core. So without them, again, you still have a problem. For example, do I have a performance management mechanism? Basically, to help drive my performance. What am I focusing on when I'm reviewing or evaluating performance? Am I emphasizing effort or am I emphasizing outcome? What is the pay model that I use to act as an incentive? Do I even have one in the first place? That is something you may want to ask yourself. And I've just given an example of the Matatu model. The Matatu model, when you look at the way the Matatu drivers and the way the Matatu conductors conduct their business, I'm not suggesting that it is the most profound way of running a business, but you can see intent. They drive their performance because they know that their take home is dependent on how efficient or how effective they do their work. Under performance, do I have consequence management mechanics? Do I measure productivity? Do I measure work? I can tell you without a doubt, 90% of organizations in Africa do not measure the work that their people do and do not measure their productivity. And that includes operational productivity. Under performance management, do I invite my people to ask for support? And is there a mechanism for continuous improvement? Those are things you must ask yourself as an organization when you're analyzing yourselves and you're looking at the space of performance. Research. How many of us do research? How many of our organizations do research? Do we look for data? Do we look for information? Do we have market intelligence? Do we understand the patterns and the trends of that data, what that data is saying? What sense do we make of that data? Do we triangulate the data so that we're able to argue scientifically that this is a fact and this should be our response to it? That is very, very critical in organizational analysis. What do we know that we need to validate? Yes, you know, but could you please validate it? Is it sound enough for us to create some action around it? What don't we know that we need to know? So again, if I'm analyzing my organization from the research docket, those are the questions that I should be asking. And when I'm talking about research, I'm not talking about the academic research. You don't need serious skills and competencies to do that. You just need street smart guys to do that kind of work for you and bring you the information that you need. Change will always be a constant. So again, when I'm analyzing my organization, I'll be asking the question, do I have a change management discipline? We are not static, but do I have a process that can manage that change? And I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from COVID-19. And the change areas may include, I want to change strategy. COVID has happened. I want to upgrade my system. I feel like this one is below capacity. My operating model has to change now. COVID doesn't allow me a face-to-face interaction. The question is, do you have a process that manages that? What is your philosophy around change? Is it incremental or is it big bang, or don't you have any philosophy in the first place? Is change management business case driven? Those are the questions you must ask yourself in the area of change. And if your organization that does not have a component that deals with change, then you have a problem. Of course, then change goes with project management. Even at a personal level, I want to run my change through a project where I'm thinking scope. What is the scope of this change? Where I'm thinking, what will it cost me? Where I'm thinking, how much time do I need to do this? So again, when I'm analyzing my organization, I must analyze it in that context. Does my organization have provision for learning? Do we have a mechanism for knowledge management, information management, data analysis? This one, I think, was made very profound, has been made very profound for me because over my years working with corporates, I realized that we repeat the same mistakes over and over again without much shame. And I'm taken to a quote I learned, I think it was about 30 years ago, I was still in high school then, that says the only lesson we learn from experience is that we don't learn from experience. And if indeed we don't learn from experience, then we must ask, do we have provision for knowledge management? I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. Decision making, how is it modeled? Who makes the decisions? Analyze that. Is it the big guy, the corner office? Is it a select few who sit in a restaurant eating nyama choma? How is decision making made? Decision making actually tells you what the leadership philosophy in that organization is. I gave you 3 things to think about when you're analyzing organization. Is it inclusive enough? The T-girl could suggest something that could give you a serious turnaround. Is it inclusive enough? Do you consider risk and uncertainty as an attribute that you must factor in your decision-making process? And if you're in a world of risk and uncertainty, then how have you framed your decision-making process? And then finally, do you allow for conversational intellectualism when you're making decisions? That's basically to say, having those difficult conversations that can help you arrive at the decisions that will be pertinent in your organizational growth. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're thinking about analyzing your organization relative to what you'd like to achieve, relative to aspirations and the vision, you cannot look at the organization in isolation of some of the activities that I've shared. Many organizations remain fixated to the internal mechanics, departments, service level agreements. We end up being so internally looking that we forget that there are other aspects of organizational growth and development that are critical for us to get to where we want to go. And without further ado, I've taken exactly 45 minutes as I had promised. Purity, I'd like to hand over the mic to you.
Thank you so much.
If you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, and I believe all of us are able to hear you. Thank you for a very precise, very in-depth details on organizational analysis. I believe all of us are living here much better, much more knowledgeable on this particular topic. I can see a few comments and a few questions that are coming from our participants today. I'll start with a comment from Catherine Wekesa. Yes, operations is the orchestra that pulls everything together. With operational excellence, an organization is in the execution of strategy more consistently, thus all sections playing well within the orchestra. So I think that one came from the example you are giving of a concert you attended a while back. All right, moving on. We have another, we have a question from, let me just get to it, from Catherine Wamwangi. In performance management, how do you divorce effort from outcomes? Most managers measure effort.
I can take it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting question and very complicated at that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we must be very clear that there's what needs to be done and there's the result that is expected out. And many times we have fallen in the trap, me included, where I did what I was meant to do, but it did not bring about the commensurate result expected of it. Separating it can be difficult because this person is telling you, I did what you asked me to do. But this is what happens when you don't quantify or you don't qualify what you're asking your resource person to deliver for you. I'm the holder of the belief that how you do it is up to you. I've already told you what I want you to do. How you do it is up to you. I will actually not police it. But what I want to measure you on is this outcome. So if our performance management tool is designed to focus on quantifiable result, like I want this number of sales by this time. I want your productivity. If you've been doing 10 things per day, I want you to scale it up to 12, because when you scale it up to 12 and somebody else scales it up to 12, you're reducing the possibility or the need for me to bring another resource person to do the 4. And that could be even something as simple as signing of checks, authorizing of checks, or as a teller in the cashier till. And so to answer that question, it's just how then do we qualify or quantify that particular item as the critical item of measurement in your performance management. So if we move away from just telling people, do this, the way we normally used to do with job cards, if we move away from that and now say, these are the results that I'm looking for, you'll be able to separate effort from outcomes. So effort, in fact, in today's world, you'll find very people are not bothered with effort. You can stay in the office the whole day if you want to. You can don't even come to the office. If you want to stay out of the office the whole week, that's entirely up to you. Just bring me the results. Purity, I don't know if I've answered that question.
All right, thank you so much. I think you've answered it. One comment from Savane. 3 things I link and focus on are strategy, organization results, and analysis and performance. In brackets, organization and employees. That's a comment. I read to you another question from Catherine. Companies are asset rich, cash poor, even Fortune 500 companies. What learning are we taking during this period of COVID-19, keeping in mind that cash is a constant strain to the business? I also have another related question to that from my inbox. It says, benevolent fund. Knowing the state of economy in Kenya, not many organizations are able to set some funds aside for a rainy day. What are the other alternatives? Julian.
Okay, I'll go with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Organizations are asset rich, and we've seen that. And you can even actually bring this to our individual perspective, where somebody in assets, they're doing very, very well.
Yes.
But in cash, probably they only had 200,000 the last 2-3 months, but that 200,000 has now run out over the 3-4 months period. And now they have no cash. but you're somebody else who probably did not have any assets, but had about 400,000 in their accounts. So if you ask yourself at this particular point in time, who is the better of the two? I would tell you it is the person without the assets, but with cash. Assuming this problem was to persist for another 12 years or for another 12 months, assuming it was to persist for another 12 months, anybody without cash would crash. So what I'm trying to say, in other words, we are learning. And I have also said that COVID brings with it three things, at least for me, I don't know about for you. Three things which we must take away. One, what have we learned from it? What I've learned now is that I need cash on standby. And not just for my personal use, but so that I can also seize an opportunity. There's a distress call somewhere. Somebody is selling an asset worth 500,000, happy to take 200,000. I could cash in on that. But if I don't have cash, I'm in trouble. Even if I have assets, how much can I sell it for at this point in time? Who would be interested? So I'm learning, and that's my takeaway. What else am I saying must come with COVID? Number two, what must come out of COVID for us as people is to build something out of it. Organizations, what are you building out of this? What is the opportunity you're seeing? How are you seizing it? Because where there is an outcry, there's also a celebration. One man's loss is another person's benefit. But the people who will win this war are those who will see opportunity in it. So that's the second thing that we must take away. And then the last one, I talked about the second one. The last one is to secure something. Within COVID space, you must secure something. Right now, I'm desperately looking for cash, just so that that cow that was being sold for 50,000 Kenya shillings 3 months ago, I could get it for 20,000 Kenya shillings. I must achieve one of those three. Otherwise, this will have been an event of futility without a value addition to me, which I do not accept. So cash is king. Anybody who has cash, and that's a good lesson for all of us, is at a very good place. Now, on the question of benevolent, I will not pretend that I'm an expert in that because I don't know what other options are there. But this is what this tells me is that in the space of your profits, where you put profit, we must now make a deliberate accounting decision where a section of that money you don't want to see. Just like you pay rent, for example, you pay yourself that amount of money to an unknown account which you have no access to for an eventuality for the future. And that's for me the lesson. Because when I look at the restaurants today, and I'm sorry to give this example, I look at Norfolk and I'm thinking, Norfolk, you are supposed to be big. Norfolk, your operations should have gone on for 12 months because you should be having the muscle to do that. If Norfolk does not have the muscle to do that to the extent that they jeopardize their own investment in Kenya, that is poor leadership. That is poor management. So what this is teaching me is out of the proceeds of your profits, put a fraction of it away and make it an accounting principle within your firm. I think that's the best idea that I can think of right now, Purity.
All right, thank you so much, Julian. Another question, one critical position that every organization should consider is that of business intelligence to help in-depth analysis of how the business is doing and forecast for the future. Your thoughts on this?
Brilliant. Business intelligence. I may not have said it the way the gentleman has put it or the lady has put it.
Yes.
But we cannot continue running organization from a gut. Yes, gut will work for us, but gut will not sustain us. Mm-hmm. What will sustain us is business intelligence. What's going on around us? What is going on around us? What can we take advantage of? How do we position? What is the competitor doing? What is my unique selling proposition? How does it compare to that of the, and that includes everybody, includes HR firms, includes service, people who are giving services of any kind or the other. We must think about business intelligence. And if COVID has taught us anything, is that we need business intelligence. Remember what I said earlier, there are people who are going to make it big during COVID-19 season. These are the people who are using business intelligence. So I want to agree with him. I couldn't agree more.
All right, thank you. One final question, I think so. From Grace Waidera. What happens when the C-suite always shoots down proposals made by the direct reports that will help in a big way in the organizational analysis? Please advise.
Recipe for disaster. And that is something I'd like to look at the C-suite members directly in their eyes and tell them, if we do not come to a place where we learn that the person who does the job better understands the problems that they face, better understands the feedback that they receive on the ground, better understands the circumstances the clients find themselves. If we don't come to a place where we understand that, so that we have a depository of information that can help us or guide us to understand customer behavior, we're actually losing a very critical component of our organizational analysis. And you will remember I spoke about conversational intellectualism. Purity, remember?
Yes.
This is where the CEO, the COO has the humility to be taught, by a clerk. Until we get to that place where you can be taught by a clerk and rationalize on the arguments being adduced, then you have a fundamental problem. For those who have that kind of mindset, which for lack of a better word, I'll call traditional, I think your longevity in the organization is not assured. So we must get to a point where we include others in decision making. We must get to a point where we gather information, and we must get to a place where we upset the status quo. A new leadership principle that has emerged, which I learned of very recently, is called leaderful practice or leaderful organizations, where you are the CEO and you're having this brainstorming session, but let it be chaired by a clerk, for heaven's sake. Let us see what is critical from the clerk's perspective and see how you can build into that. So the concept of leadership will be tested after COVID. So yes, I empathize, but we need to look at the CEOs and let them know.
All right, thank you so much. I think we've covered all the questions that have been asked today. I'll just read a few comments that are going on the comment section. One is from Savain. Effort and outcome are managed through competency-based performance management. I see someone agrees with her, Catherine. Not all managers practice or understand competency-based performance management. They may have undergone the training, but practice becomes an issue that creates a challenge. It's Savain as well. She continues to explain it further. Herein lies the opportunity. This is the time to demystify management as an exclusive function of the C-suite. Competency-based management helps achieve strategic results because it includes the competency management of all employees. You manage yourself and your contribution to attainment of the organization's strategy. I think that is it from for us today. I think this is a question, I'm not so sure. Am I right to say that organizational culture is the most critical factor in management? What do you think, Julian?
Culture is so amorphous. So when we talk about culture, what exactly do we mean? Is it tangible? Is it something we can see? Does it evolve? Does it change form and shape? Mm-hmm. I actually think, and this is a personal opinion, I think I would go more for attitude than culture.
All right.
Yeah. What is your attitude? I would like a daredevil attitude. I'd like a can-do attitude. I'd like thriving under pressure kind of attitude. Not to say that culture is not important, but I'm just trying to disabuse this notion, and a lot of people get into that trap where we come up with philosophies like culture, and then we rally behind it as a critical aspect that should give us a turnaround. But when you go into the detail of it to try and see the efficacy of it in its application, then there's a bit of a struggle. So I've had the privilege to work for 5 different organizations, all of which spoke of glowing culture, really glowing culture, but nothing on the ground came close to what they profess themselves. And this includes even values that we pin up on the walls. So if we can get, and I think, Purity, this is your space. If we can get to a place where we envision our staff in terms of where we want to go, we enable our staff in terms of giving them the tools they need to do their trade. And we go ahead and energize them. So much so that they are always eager to come to work the following day. I think the battle will be won. And then we move away from the semantics, like culture and everything, that if you ask 10 people what it meant to them, they'll give you 10 different answers.
All right, thank you so much, Julian. I see we are on top of the hour, so we should be winding up. I'll just read to you a few comments that as we close. From Grace, eye-opening session, thank you. I saw a comment from Ruth, the session was educational and awakening. So I think that is it from us at Accurex. I see the conversation is still going on our chat box, but I think thanks to everyone who was able to join in for this conversation. Feel free to leave us your email address if you want this particular presentation by Julian. Also check out our YouTube channel for this particular webinar, the recording of the webinar. Other than that, I wish you the very best for the rest of your day and the week as well. Be sure to join us next week on Wednesday at 11 a.m. We have scheduled yet another webinar. I have been your host. My name is Purity Wanjiru, the director of Accurex Leadership and Management Consultants Limited. We do a lot of trainings, coaching, mentorship, anything that deals with people, we are right in there. So thank you so much. We wish you the very best. Continue keeping safe, continue to sanitize wherever you are. Keep distance, wear your mask once you're out of the house. Until next time, thank you so much and God bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Purity, for having me. Bye.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.